inspired us to teach on it. So I went through it. It's a really short read, and on Amazon Prime, it's only $1.99 for the Kindle version. So I highly recommend you read it after we go through this today. So what are the 4 C's? They are commitment, courage, capability, and confidence. So these are the 4 pillars that are within that 4 C's aspect. Now, with commitment, nothing starts till you commit to achieving a SMART goal. So the way it's supposed to begin is you're supposed to have a goal in mind, and then you need to commit to it. But then you're going to have to go through the 4 C's in order to get to the end goal, which is achieving something that is just really almost scary to think about, which is so unique. It's risky, right? So courage, you have to take action before you've acquired the capability to achieve a result. So with that being said, you really do need to have the courage to move forward before you've acquired the capability. So you're going to attack something that you're not really 100% confident in, build the courage to then go after it. With capability, it's actually created because of your commitment and courage. So those two, the commitment and courage, will build the capability to be able to accomplish it. And then lastly, the confidence is a result of the first 3 stages. So what's so unique about it is that once you go through all 4 of these C's, you hit confidence, you will begin to see success, and then you'll have confidence to achieve things that you may not have been able to achieve prior, because it's almost like head trash got in the way. You thought you couldn't do it, but then look at you now. And then what's so interesting is that confidence will keep building as you continue to go through the 4 C's. So then you'll start achieving things you never imagined possible prior, because every step of the way, your confidence is growing. So with commitment, we're going to kind of go through all 4. So with the commitment, there were some key points I wanted to point out here. So really, commitment opens up possibilities. We must sell ourselves on a goal. You can't really doing something you don't have yet the capability to pull off. So if you think about it, you want to commit to something that makes you uncomfortable, because you don't know if you're going to do it or not, but the process will kind of get you to the end goal. And you don't always have to be successful. It's a successful failure. So even if it fails, at least you try. And that's the whole idea here. So your first time doing a presentation, you might not be 100% comfortable with it. There was a really good example in the book of a young gal that was going to present on a topic that she really just didn't know much about. She had never done it before. And what was so interesting is that they gave her opportunities to back out, but she kept saying, no, I want to commit and finish this and do it. And then what was so unique is that, she went through the process. She ended up presenting. She, right afterwards, was kind of like, wow, I don't know if I could do that again. But then a day later, she was ready to go for the next big thing. So it almost became like, okay, now I accomplished it. I now have the confidence to keep going. So she kept wanting to do more after that. And how many times it happened to you guys where maybe you're going to go on a roller coaster and you're just kind of scared because it goes in circles and you don't want to be upside down, or what if you fall out, right? So once you get to the end and then it's finished, you want to be first in line to go right back on. So that's kind of a cool little story from the book. So with that being said, I thought, we could have some group discussions about this. Have any of you ever committed something you weren't 100% positive you could deliver on? Just maybe share if you did it or not. Did you succeed or fail? And how did you feel after? Just going to kind of open this up for a couple minutes for us to share any thoughts or examples.
I'll start. I remember when I started, it was one of the first businesses I started was a landscaping business. And I remember that I had so I want to start doing like sprinkling systems. And so I went to a Saturday training at this like sprinkling company. They were talking about like, here's the system and this is the normal way. And he says, but he said, there's this like double system that you might have to do. He goes, you'll probably never run into this ever once, you know, in your career of trying to do sprinkling systems. But he says, you know, here's kind of how you do it. And so I remember I got my first job and I went to the guy's house and he went through and he's like, oh, by the way, I have this double system I need put in. Do you think you could do it? I did. I immediately was just like, oh yeah, for sure. And it was an absolute mess. I mean, I spent so much time evening, I tried to figure out, I was on the phone, going down to I mean, it was, it all finally came together, but it was a mess. I mean, I definitely lost money on that first job for sure, because I had no idea what I was doing, but it was good. I learned a bunch of things not to do. So yeah, that was one of my stories. So
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. That's great. And yeah, then yeah, it's amazing how you think about where you started, then now you learn from what may have not gone totally right for you, but then on the next one, you always know what happened in the past to kind of build from it. So for you, it probably built that sense of confidence for the next try.
made me not want to be in the landscaping business. No, I'm kidding. No, it was good. Yeah, it was good.
It reminds me of a quote from some president. I can't remember who it is, but it's along the lines of when asked to do a task, say yes and then figure out how.
Yeah,
I can't remember who it was, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of like a good policy to go by.
100%.
Yeah.
That's good. So with courage, you know, most people won't take action on a project or goal unless they feel capable and confident about it, which totally makes sense because we don't always like to put ourselves in uncomfortable situations or positions. So one example from the book was, you know, there was a gal that wanted to write 100 books in 100 quarters.
That was Dan Sullivan.
Oh, that was Dan. Okay. I was like, was it Dan? I wasn't totally clear on that. So thanks for clarifying. And so, you know, when you mentioned that courage means taking yourself out of your comfort zone, there's different types of courage that were explained. So there's long courage versus short courage. One thing I found was so interesting was long courage can span over 100 quarters if you allow it. So the example that was shared was, all right, I could write it on my own. I could write these 100 books in 100 quarters on my own, and that would be long courage. Or I can find people on my team that can help support me and do certain pieces of each book. And then that would shorten the courage span. So then you're put in an uncomfortable position for a less amount of time, right? So it's almost like when we get deal fatigue here, you know, some of these loans that take 90 days to close, we're just going. You get fatigued in the process. The client gets a little frustrated. We just want it to be done. So how do you shorten that courage from long to short? So there was another little quote in there that I thought was really unique. I pointed out here. It's if you've only made a 75% commitment, your period of courage is going to be longer because you shortchange it by 25%. Any degree of commitment less than 100% automatically extends the period of courage that is required. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you've only made 75%, your period of courage is going to be longer. You'll be shortchanged 25%. Yeah, it's really good. He unpacks that. It's really fascinating how he explains this. It's very mind-bending, but he's trying to describe, it's very backwards, because like he says here, most people will wait till they get the capability and the confidence. That's how they think. I'll get the capability, then I'll have the confidence, then I'll do it. Then I'll have the courage and then I'll commit, right? It's very backwards. He says it's totally the opposite. And what he's saying is when you commit, he says you're training yourself how long you're going to have to be in the courage zone. So you're just having to and he says the more and more you do it, he says that period shrinks down. So he says I'm less and less in the courage zone of freaking out, going, oh my gosh, I'm going to pull this off as I keep doing it more and more and more. As he goes along, he says each time I write a book, I'm less and less when I'm like, oh, I have to write a new one. And he's like, it's less and less courage zone because I've committed so fast. And so it's a very interesting way to think on committing. And you notice like when you commit to something, it's like, but getting into commitment zone is hard. Like you're like, I don't know. But when you do, it's like, okay, I've got to be courageous and like go for it. So it's really good stuff, Dan.
Yeah, no, that definitely struck me too in a huge way. So, yeah, and like I said, I think everyone should definitely read this. It's a short read, but it's very impactful. And there's a few other things that kind of stood out to me here on the courage side. So, the difference between fear and courage is that fear is wetting your pants. Courage is doing what you're supposed to do with wetting your pants. I had to point that out there. The example he shared was actually like he was training in the military, and one of the exercises was they'd have to hold a grenade, and then they had to be very timely with how that process went. If you drop the grenade, you could potentially get blown up, right? So it was funny because the sergeant that oversaw Dan Sullivan was like, well, hey, I trust you the most because you're actually open about being afraid.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't trust the people that don't tell me they're afraid when they actually are afraid. So he had Dan Sullivan go first with the grenade exercise, and it went really well. But I thought that was really interesting is that the sergeant was basically saying it's okay to be vulnerable and tell me you're afraid. I'd rather know that than you hide it from me and then we find out something later. So there's a lot to be said about that. It's how do we establish trust and how do we build trust. So there's also some ways to avoid courage through paralysis, procrastination. We've probably all done that when you're unsure of a project you want to accomplish, and just kind of keep waiting it out because you just are avoiding it altogether. And even sometimes addiction due to lack of confidence. So there are some more examples of that. Without courage, you may never have a personal breakthrough that can generate new kinds of growth in every area of your life. So if you think about it, when we all kind of hope to have breakthroughs within our leadership journey, without establishing courage or enabling courage and being uncomfortable, we'll never have those. So you'll always just kind of be status quo, where you really need to think about how to grow personally, professional, put yourself in uncomfortable situations. Like I think, Tom was an example today. He's already having breakthroughs in his project, and it's coming out a lot maybe differently than we envisioned, but it's better. And that's because of Tom putting himself in a position that's uncomfortable, but also really excelling in it. So good job, Tom.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, if you think about that in the beginning too, that remember it was fuzzy. You're like, okay, but you had to commit to it.
Yeah.
And you had to have the courage to just trust, like, okay, we're going to get there somehow, get the capabilities.
Mhm.
And also you're having more and more, I see it every week, more and more confidence.
Yeah, no, I
Right?
think
Does that make sense? Yeah.
So your confidence level will just keep growing because you're building that courage muscle. So keep it up.
Absolutely.
And another piece, I know this isn't a C word, it's innovation, but it was part of that where I thought was so unique and I wanted to point it out, was that innovation starts when people are thrown into situations where they have to be committed to getting a bigger and better result. So an example I thought of was actually, or they actually mentioned them in the book. There's just some stories we could share. Losing your job, your business collapses, the market changes, voluntarily putting yourself in this position. It reminded me a lot of innovation out of frustration. That's one of our values here. It's almost like you have to be in the stress of the situation and then work your way out of it. There was a point in my life where I got laid off and I started a business. I did all this stuff that I would have never done if I still had that W-2 income that was so stable and nice to have. It did take a really challenging thing to happen for me to be able to do that. And then that ultimately led me here. So look how amazing that ended up being. So there's a lot of things I had to grow in to be innovative, but then also I was in a position of stress, and that helped me work my way out of it to figure out, okay, what is that going to look like for me in the future, for our family? And, and I know you guys probably have had experiences. I know, Brett had experiences with this and it worked out. So, it's a very positive thing, and innovation is something we can't forget about, because that only helps us grow and continue to evolve our business as well. Capability. So there's bigger futures come from new capabilities, right? So the confidence is the byproduct of gaining new capability. So some of the capabilities include personal capabilities, team capabilities, and funding capabilities. There's confidence is how you feel as a result of acquiring the capabilities. So basically, as you build capabilities personally, professionally, and anything you do, you're only going to keep building your confidence muscle. So your confidence will continue to grow as your capabilities start to evolve and change in different ways. And that confidence in turn creates the capacity to make a bigger commitment. So as we get more confident, our commitments become bigger. That's what it comes down to. So build those capabilities, because then your commitments will not only grow, but they'll also be more impactful. And then you're going to also keep surprising yourself with things that you never imagined possible. And then there's confidence. Confidence creates more commitment. You get good at something and you just want to keep going bigger, right? So you just keep getting better at it. And it's like, my first loan here was $150,000, and now they just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, because now I'm getting better at doing it. So, and that's going to be the same for you, Skylar. And as we know with Dave, over 18 to 20 years of his experience, so it's amazing. But one thing that we have to be careful of is that confidence can create complacency. So actually, I read this article about how in skydiving, a lot of the skydivers, generally speaking, the most accidents occur when they're seasoned skydivers, because they get so confident and just, okay, I'm on autopilot, I don't have to really think about it. That's when they make that mistake, and then they have an incident. So, the more you jump, ideally you'd think, oh, the more safe you are, the more experience, but then you get complacent, you mess up, and then unfortunately that could be the end. So just keep that in mind. It can be a little, with confidence, you got to also keep building on it. So keep going back to the 4 C's, start from the beginning, and keep challenging yourself to grow, and treat it like it's never going to change. Like, you got to keep treating it as if it's brand new and you're learning something. It's like with clients, even in our business, it's, even if a client keeps coming back to me, it doesn't mean that they're never going to be asked to use someone else at some point, and they have that choice. So treat them like they're new every time, and with the same level of service. Always challenge yourself by making bigger commitments that put your confidence at risk. So basically that's saying, be a little bit afraid, keep making commitments that challenge you, because you don't want to become complacent. So there was an exercise in the book I thought we could try. I'm not sure if you guys have pen and paper handy. If not, it's totally okay. We can kind of explain it and go through it. But I thought it was a really cool exercise, and I can share this presentation with you guys after the meeting today to kind of go through it if needed. But basically, it's just you're going to basically draw 4 boxes like this. And then with that being said, you're going to remember a growth experience that you've had personally. It could be personally in work, it could be really anything, where you clearly went through the 4 stages. So you'd want to draw the 4 boxes on a sheet of paper and label them in order. 1 being commitment, 2 being courage, 3 being capability, 4 being confidence. And then at the top of the page, write down the name of the experience and the date when it happened. And if you don't know exactly what the date was, that's okay. And then just kind of go through the formula, go through the commitment stage, the courage stage, capability, and the confidence. And I even thought, maybe even like write down your commitment to growth, how that your commitment to growth was in the situation. Describe the courage it required on your part to move forward with the commitment. Identify the new capability that emerged as a result of your courage. and then write down the new level of confidence you achieved from this whole experience. So I do think the exercise is worthwhile because it could take you through the whole process. And then, even in the book, it's so funny. They mentioned that it's not only with adults, this could work with kids. So there was a kid at school, they had gone in like midterm, and then they went through this process, and it allowed the child to feel a lot more confident in their ability to connect with the other classmates, and just really fit in and be part of it. So it's kind of interesting. So maybe Ford can be our first example of it, working with a toddler.
He's afraid of nothing though.
Yeah, I was gonna say, he just wants to crush everything.
What were the 4 boxes again, Dan? And
Commitment, courage, capability, and then confidence.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool example. And then there was also another challenge. I feel like every time I present, there's always a challenge of some sort. So there's a 90-day breakthrough challenge that I thought was really interesting, and I'm actually implementing it right now for myself. It's what is the best focus for my courage? And just by simply planning to do 3 important things a day and just be 100% committed to them as the goals you set for yourself that align with your values and purpose. So, that, like right now, I have like the personal, the professional, and then I have like the health and wellness side. So my 3 are just, making my calls every day, going to the gym, and then also it's ensuring that I'm following up and following through my prayer. So like sometimes I skip days. So now I'm like just doing it no matter what every day. It's been good. So those are my 3 things for this 90-day breakthrough challenge.
Awesome.
And I encourage you guys to do your own.
It's awesome, Dan.
And then the last one is Chief Commitment Officer. So I think Dave is really good about this. It's like when we make big commitments to big goals, we want everyone on board. Don't be the chief commitment preventer, but be the officer. No one else will make it if you're not committed, and lead by example. So we have a lot of big goals that we're going to achieve here, and let's just be excited and make it public. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Good job, Dan.
Good job.
Great.